With the WINN FM News, I am Kevin Brown.
And I am Yolana Weeks.
Our top stories.
St. Kitts Nevis Defense Force contingent concludes exercise Trade Winds 2025.
ECCB Governor calls for establishment of dedicated trade logistics hub for CARICOM. Police identify suspected drowning victim as Bernard Isaac.
Waste sampling and composition analysis exercise in Nevis highlights the need for proper waste separation.
Island Youth Forum set to inspire future leaders at the Global Sustainable Island Summit in St. Kitts and Nevis. Grenada battling influx of sargassum seaweed. St. Lucia minister dismisses opposition claims of poverty crisis in St. Lucia. Internationally, Pakistan holds funerals for 31 killed in drone strikes as tensions with India reach critical levels.
Now, the details.
12 officers from the St. Kitts and Nevis Defense Force represented the Federation at Exercise Trade Winds 2025, a multinational exercise hosted by the U.S. Southern Command in Trinidad and Tobago from April 26 to May 8, 2025. St. Kitts and Nevis participated in the exercise alongside 24 other territories, including Antigua and Barbuda, Argentina, the Bahamas, Barbados, Belize, Bermuda, Canada, Colombia, Dominica, the Dominican Republic, Ecuador, France, Grenada, Guyana, Jamaica, Mexico, St. Lucia, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Suriname, Trinidad and Tobago, Turks and Caicos Islands, the United Kingdom, and the United States. As a result of the Trade Winds exercise, participating countries are more capable of strengthening their internal and regional responses and executing missions such as ground operations, maritime interdiction, cyber defense, and interagency coordination. The trainings will also allow participating countries to better confront critical regional challenges such as illicit trafficking, disaster response, humanitarian crises, and cyber threats. Over the past 2 weeks, participants were exposed to medical casualty drills, prisoner handling, small boat interdiction, helicopter fast roping onto targets of interest, close quarter combat, weapons handling and marksmanship, small and long arms tactics, vessel boarding, search and seizure, mission planning, smoke and grenade familiarization, illegal, unreported and unregulated fishing, command post operations, running emergency centers, cybersecurity, and providing humanitarian aid. To culminate Exercise Trade Winds 2025, a full mission profile event was organized to demonstrate the joint combined capabilities enhanced during the training. Quote, capacity building remains a critical objective, enabling our troops to enhance their skills, defend our nation more effectively, and help maintain the peaceful environment we all enjoy. A statement from the St. Kitts and Nevis Defense Force said. Exercise Trade Winds was launched 40 years ago in 1984.
On the sidelines of the recent IMF World Bank Group Spring meetings held at the end of April, Governor of the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank ECCB Timothy N.J. Antoine expressed pressing concerns regarding the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union's trade relations with a particular focus on food security. Governor Antoine expressed the region's heavy reliance on imported goods and the accompanying challenges from trade tensions and shipping uncertainties.
We have to look very seriously now at our logistics hub, where we source and how things are shipped to our region and within the region. Because not only are we very dependent on the Port of Miami for many of our goods, but it is true even for exports or trade within the region, intra-Caribbean trade. A lot of our trade is being shipped to Miami, for example, on tropical shipping and then coming back down. So even within the Caribbean, we are using US ports for trade. We clearly have to fix that to make it cheaper, to make it faster, and obviously to make it more reliable.
He added that this situation calls for meaningful discussion and decision-making on establishing a dedicated trade logistics hub for the CARICOM region, citing potential locations such as Jamaica, the Dominican Republic, Trinidad, or Panama. The governor further highlighted the critical issue of food security, which intertwines with broader health challenges in the region. In response to inquiries about the impact of current logistical constraints on food security and related health issues, Governor Antoine underscored the situation's urgency and complexity.
Again, this is a moment that cannot be wasted. We have to make a full commitment to really boost food and nutrition security. And the shipping issue that I just mentioned in respect of how we move goods around the region is important, because if you're moving food from a surplus country to a deficit country, you're moving sweet potatoes or yam from one to the next, you need shipping. Right now, that shipping is not properly established and it needs to be addressed.
He also shed light on the economic realities impacting dietary choices within the region.
There is also the issue of costs, because frankly spoken, some of the ultra-processed food, which is driving NCDs, non-communicable diseases, in our region, or in part, those foods are cheaper than locally produced foods and organic foods. And we have to address that question, because in an environment where budgets are tight, both at the family level, household level, and at the state level, government, people are going to make decisions based on what they can afford.
Governor Antoine emphasized the need for food and nutrition security investment to make healthier food options more affordable and accessible.
So it is not just simply saying eat healthier. It is finding affordable, healthier options. And so the investment now in food and nutrition security is going to be really, really important to help bring down those costs. That is not easy, but that is what we have to do to address both the fiscal situation, the economic situation, and, as you pointed out, the health situation.
He highlighted the severity of non-communicable diseases in the region.
8 in 10 deaths in our region are coming from non-communicable diseases, diabetes, heart disease, cancers, and so on. Just think about the economic costs of that. And then you think about the familial costs, the impact on productivity. It's a serious issue.
Addressing trends in food imports, Governor Antoine noted a concerning pattern.
So there have been strides made, but what we find is that when the economy starts to improve, we see more and more food imports going up, as I showed a few weeks ago in the Growth and Resilience Dialogue. So during the pandemic, it went down because things slowed, but once things picked up, food imports went back up. And we're not anywhere close to the target of reducing our food import bill by 25%. But we are working on it, and I think this is a moment for us to really make a breakthrough in this area.
Governor Antoine's remarks highlight the intersecting challenges of trade logistics and food security facing the Caribbean, underscoring the need for strategic planning and investment to build a more resilient, healthy, and economically sustainable region. Police are investigating the death of Bernard Isaac, 68, of Lagrite, St. Kitts, who was pulled from the water during the night of May 7, 2025, from Irish Town Bay Road near the Bastille Public Market and a supermarket. Police have shared that between 10 p.m. and 10:30 p.m. officers responded to a report of an individual drifting motionless inshore along the Bay Road. Isaac was pulled from the water and was pronounced dead by a medical examiner on the scene. The specifics of Isaac's death are unknown at the time of reporting, but it is suspected that he drowned. An autopsy will be conducted to determine the official cause of death. More on this as information becomes available.
The Nevis Recycling Team is positioning itself to effectively manage waste collection, particularly plastic waste. The Nevis Recycling Team launched a waste sampling and composition analysis, an initiative designed by the Taiwanese Technical Mission, which is particularly focused on deepening the understanding of waste trends across Nevis, more so seeking a better understanding of how plastic is being used and discarded by households, businesses, and institutions, and also gathering insights on the frequency of recyclables like plastics and metals. The data gathered from the exercise could be used as information to policymakers about the current waste stream and help investors interested in exploring recycling options in Nevis develop their proposals. An April 29 waste sampling and composition analysis in Newcastle Village, dubbed Newcastle Collection Day, a wake-up call for waste separation, was one of several already carried out. The Nevis Recycling Team trawled through household waste collected from the Newcastle area and shared feedback from the exercise. Of particular concern to the Nevis Recycling Team was a large number of plastic bottles and other recyclable materials combined with regular household waste. The Nevisian public was advised to engage in proper waste management by separating plastic bottles, sorting out aluminium and tin cans, setting aside glass containers, and flattening and bundling cardboard. WINN FM gathered pertinent information from members of the recycling team at a public awareness campaign, Know Your Bins, held at the Memorial Square in Charlestown in April 2025, to educate residents on waste separation and to address public concerns about a lack of bins per household across the island. They advised that plastic bottles and containers be rinsed out and put into black garbage bags, and the same be done for metal tins. Meanwhile, where available, red bins are particularly designated for plastic bottles only, and blue bins for waste metal and tins, including aluminium. The green bin is specifically for general household waste. Residents of Nevis were encouraged to continue supporting the mission to divert recyclables from the already overburdened landfill and to ensure the preservation of the environment as outlined in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis's sustainability agenda.
The island nation of St. Kitts and Nevis is gearing up to host a groundbreaking event focused on climate action, sustainability, and community innovation. At the forefront of this movement are youth leaders, Akwanje Robinson, CARICOM Youth Ambassador for St. Kitts and Nevis and Executive Research Officer in the Ministry of Environment and Climate Action, and Muriel Knight, Senior Member of the St. Kitts National Youth Parliament. Speaking on WINN FM's Island Tea program on May 7, 2025, both expressed their excitement and highlighted the importance of the upcoming Global Sustainable Island Summit and its associated Island Youth Forum, which will be held from May 25th through 30th, 2025 in St. Kitts.
Well, the Ministry of Environment, Climate Action and Constituency Empowerment and the Government of St. Kitts and Nevis at large, in collaboration with Island Innovation, is hosting a groundbreaking summit, one of a kind in the Caribbean between the islands of St. Kitts and Nevis, called the Global Sustainable Island Summit. And it intends to unite island nations from all around the world in the interest of climate action, sustainability, and community innovation. And to precede the summit, we have an Island Youth Forum that intends to unite young people with the same interest to harness the tools that would allow us to tackle cross-cutting issues that we face as island people due to the impacts of climate change.
The summit aims to galvanize island nations globally, bringing them together to share insights and solutions unique to their geographic and environmental realities. Muriel Knight emphasized the urgency and importance of young people's role in this initiative.
St. Kitts and Nevis is playing host to the third edition of the Global Sustainable Island State Summit, as Akwanje would have mentioned. And around the world, we see that there are well over 650,000 islands, many of them grouped together as island state nations. And the United Nations has classified around 39 of their own member states as small island developing states. And these also include an additional 18 associate states around the Caribbean and around the Pacific region in particular. And what we realize is that a lot of these small island states, because of their geography, because of their climate, and because of their location, and for many of them, because of their past, their histories, they face a unique set of challenges that a lot of the developed states, or the bigger countries, as we would call them, do not face. And so what we have realized is that by coming together and finding united solutions, we can be a part of the change that we want to see in our world. And young people, not only as the leaders of tomorrow, but as today's leaders, we must play an active role in securing those solutions so that future generations can enjoy a world of peace, of sustainability, and a climate-friendly world. Okay. And those are a lot of the topics that we aim to hit at the Island Youth Forum and at the wider GSIS. But as part of the wider GSIS, it was thought that young people can't just be seeing what's going on. They have to be a part of the action as well. Definitely. And so before the actual summit, we want to have a youth forum where young people can contribute to the issues that will be discussed at the wider summit a few days later.
Robinson highlighted the forum's thematic focus, which is tied closely to the Sustainable Island State Agenda, which sets out 7 pillars underpinning the Federation's sustainability goals.
Sustainability is a general principle, but in the local context, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the term CISA, or in extension, the Sustainable Island State Agenda. And the CISA has 7 pillars at which we plan to achieve sustainability as a federation. So The 7 key pillars are energy transition, water security, food security, sustainable settlements, sustainable industries, circular economy, and social protection and health. Now, those are just terms to rephrase what sustainability means. And the Island Youth Forum plans to focus on these topics.
The Island Youth Forum will occur at the St. Kitts Marriott Resort on May 25th and 26th, 2025. It will offer young people between 15 and 35 a platform to engage directly with pressing sustainability topics.
It will be hosted on the 25th and the 26th of May.
Yes.
That's in the next 2 weeks. And one day it will be held at the St. Kitts Marriott Resort.
Yes.
And the second day would be...
Should be the Marriott as well.
Yes, okay. So both days will be held at the Marriott, and that's the 25th and the 26th. Primarily, we're targeting young people between the ages of 15 and 35. That's whether you're in school, whether you're at the Clarence Fitzroy Bryan College, Geneva Sixth Form College, or whether you're just a part of a youth group, or whether you're just a young person interested in making a change.
Yes.
You're more than welcome.
We welcome
to join us.
The forum is not only designed for theoretical discussions, but will also feature practical activities, plenary sessions, and panel discussions to equip young participants with the tools and knowledge to become active agents of change.
We plan to have plenary style discussions, panel discussions, and practical activities as well, because we not only want to focus on the theoretical aspect as well, but we want to allow the young people to practically apply what we have learned throughout.
Both young men expressed their dedication to the cause and their hopes that young people across the Federation and beyond will seize the opportunity. Robinson shared what sustainable means to him moving forward.
As a term by itself, I feel like sustainability can be defined as longevity.
Yes.
Taking from something while still sustaining it. But in the context of climate change and the environment, and more so environmental sustainability in particular, I feel as though it would amount to us using the resources of our environment in a sustainable fashion. So we exploit the resources, but we don't exploit it to the point where they are no more.
Yes, they exhaust.
Yes, we don't exhaust the resources, because not all of our resources are renewable.
That's it.
So the resources that can't replenish themselves, we have to have a conscience, and we have to be mindful of the future generations that have to use these resources as well.
Knight offered his perspective as well.
When I think of sustainability, I think of creating an environment that, well, first, understanding the environment that I enjoy, and understanding that if I want my children and my grandchildren to enjoy that environment, or even a better environment, that I have to do my part today, because it can't be left for when they come, especially as Aquanjo mentioned, for those resources that won't replenish themselves on their own. If I enjoy a particular beach and I want my children and grandchildren one day to walk on that same beach, I have to make decisions today that will secure their future on that beach.
Yes.
And put simply, I think that is sustainability. But on the grander scheme, it's setting up ourselves and our communities and our countries to thrive in the long term.
Robinson wrapped up with an inspiring call to action.
I am here as a very passionate environmentalist, as a young leader, and as someone who would encourage other people to take this grand opportunity to learn something new, to take part in action that we all should take part in, to lend to the decisions that would shape the future that we are to inherit, but we have to manage now. So I would encourage young people to indulge. Don't just inherit a future and complain about it. You have to take part in the present now, because we matter now, and our decisions matter, and our voices matter. So use your voice and use your free will to do good.
Knight underscored the unique opportunity the event presents, urging,
This is an opportunity for young people to have their voices heard. It's an opportunity for them to be a part of the decision. And even for the Federation, it's an opportunity to showcase our culture and our warm hospitality as we welcome many delegates from around the world and many of the sustainable island states and the small island states around the globe. And so I want to encourage young people to take part in this opportunity. And as I always encourage other young people, that your network is your net worth. And so this also presents an opportunity for you to meet like-minded young people, not just from around St. Kitts and Nevis, from around the Caribbean, but around the entire globe. Yes. And so I want them to seize this opportunity and be a part of the change that they want to see.
The Island Youth Forum, a prelude to the Global Sustainable Island Summit, which is scheduled for May 27th through 29th, 2025, promises to be a transformative event. Young voices will shape the sustainable futures of islands worldwide.
In regional news,
Grenada battling influx of sargassum seaweed, Grenada Broadcasting Network reports.
The Ministry of Blue Economy, in collaboration with the Grenada Solid Waste Management Authority, is taking action to address the influx of sargassum seaweed along the coastline of St. Andrew. Myrna Julian, Communications Officer at the Grenada Solid Waste Management Authority, explained that teams have already been deployed to clean affected areas. Crews are working in shift throughout the day to remove the seaweed, which have caused an unpleasant odor across the parish.
Currently, what we are doing is the deployment of teams to areas that are affected by the presence of sargassum on the eastern side of the island, mainly in St. Andrews, where there is the pungent or unpleasant odor emerging from the settling of sargassum. And so the complaints, I must say, they have reduced in terms of residents from the affected area. We started off with just 10 workers, and we are now, because we are deploying teams, we now have 30 workers employed per day to remove the beach sargassum from the affected areas.
Julian emphasized that while the sargassum is not considered hazardous, it presents a potential business opportunity. She outlined the daily operations of cleanup crews and noted that the collected seaweed is being stored at 2 designated sites.
We have teams which work very early to remove any sargassum seaweed that would have entered those systems. And during the daytime, from about 8 o'clock to mid-afternoon, we have the teams that are engaged in the removal of the beached sargassum, and it's taken by transport to a facility, and thanks to government for affording us that opportunity to use that area at Maribor. And for the dry sargassum, we deposit at our facility at Telescope. However, due to the huge influx at this time,
she added that the authority is also identifying other locations across the island to store the seaweed.
The authority, we are developing some green points throughout Grenada, so we are establishing these locations for the management of organic waste. And whereas in the past we used the Old Pearls airstrip, we have since discontinued using that area. Last year we had a very low season, but this year I think it is really, it's in huge quantities. So we are now committing to dispose at the Maribor facility.
The goal is to eventually turn the seaweed influx into a revenue-generating opportunity for Grenada. Rena P. Thomas, GBN News.
St. Lucia minister dismisses opposition claims of poverty crisis in St. Lucia. DBS St. Lucia has that story.
They have made us into a nation of beggars. Everybody has to be begging to make ends meet. Even the middle class in this country is suffering at the hands of the St. Lucia Labour Party.
That was Guy Joseph, the deputy leader of the opposition United Workers' Party, speaking at a Groseley constituency meeting last Thursday. Joseph claims that the island citizens are facing undue hardships under the stewardship of the St. Lucia Labour Party. Despite the government's implementation of various social programs and initiatives aimed at supporting vulnerable populations, Joseph contends that these efforts have fallen short. He is adamant that a variety of poverty crises have been created by the government's management of key issues.
But I want to remind the St. Lucia Labour Party, it is not only period poverty we have in this country. We have education poverty. We have bread poverty. Yes, we have cooking gas poverty. People have to be begging to be able to buy a tank of gas. We have food poverty because people cannot get 3 square meals a day under this St. Lucia Labour Party. We now have visa poverty. Did you hear me? We have visa poverty.
Minister for Equity Joachim Henry has firmly rejected these claims, highlighting progress made by the current administration in alleviating the economic hardships of citizens.
Visa poverty may be affecting persons above the poverty line, because persons above the poverty line do not go and look for visas. Persons below the poverty line don't go and look for visas per se. Persons way down at the bottom, or it's not a priority for some of them. They want their birth certificate, they want the ID card, they want their passport. And once they satisfy that, they'll move to the next level. But fuel poverty and food poverty is the same thing, because you need fuel to cook food. So when he spoke of food poverty and fuel poverty, again, I think he doesn't get it right. And in that category, it's really called indigent, because indigent, which is poverty or food poverty, food poor people, for which we have made a dent. At one point in time, it was almost 2-something%. The last I checked, 1.8% of the population thereabout are considered to be indigent, food poor.
Minister Henry re-emphasized key policies coming out of this year's budget, targeted at helping vulnerable sections of the society.
We have new partners. The Bexor Catholic Church has received $10,000 additionally. The Labey Ansarat SDA Church also received $10,000 to increase the food program in the constituency of Castries Southeast. But there are other entities that have received additional grants and contributions. The government invests from time to time quite a bit in terms of food vouchers to provide support to individuals.
For the DBS News World, Zain Bromulus reported.
We now bring you these international reports.
Funerals have been held for 31 people killed by what Pakistan is calling unprovoked Indian aggression against civilians. Even as people were being buried, more attacks were reported.
India has undertaken yet another blatant military act of aggression against Pakistan by sending Harap drones at multiple locations. Pakistan Armed Forces, being in a high state of alert and vigilance, have so far neutralized 12 Harap drones at various locations.
In several cities across Pakistan, protests have been taking place. Hundreds came out to the streets in the capital, Islamabad.
The attack that India carried out was on unarmed civilians, while the Pakistani army destroyed their military installations and aircrafts.
Palpable anger, but there's also concern that the situation could escalate even further. People in border towns and cities have been told to turn off their lights at night, and some have been evacuated, as Pakistan is adamant that it reserves the right to respond after India killed its citizens. And the escalating tensions are having an impact on tens of thousands of people. Flights at major airports, including Karachi, Lahore and Sialkot, were temporarily suspended. Pakistan says it cannot ignore an infringement of its integrity and sovereignty, and politicians want world powers to rein in India.
Pakistan does not seek war. We've never pursued the path to conflict, but India is making it very difficult, and they're once again threatening the peace and stability in all of South Asia. I do call on the international community to play their role, because this is not just a bilateral issue, this is a global issue. It's a potential global crisis between two nuclear-armed neighbors.
As more people are killed and bodies laid to rest, grief and anger are fanning the flames at one of the world's most dangerous nuclear flashpoints. Osama bin Javed, Al Jazeera, Islamabad.
Ecstatic crowds cheer at the liberation of Europe, the end of a war against fascism that had lasted 6 years. The continent lay in ruins, divided between the advancing Soviet armies and those of the Allies. 20 to 30 million people lost their lives, hundreds of millions more displaced by a conflict triggered in part by the rise of the organised far right. 80 years later, and the legacy of World War II still lingers.
The lesson learned from West Germany, where I grew up, is that the root cause of this is not just an ideology like Nazi Germany, but it is a form of nationalism that we should overcome by building a different political system after World War II to avoid nationalism.
This desire to avoid the mistakes of the past and secure the future prosperity of the continent fueled a need to ensure political and economic stability.
And that led to a series of constellations with regard to how you organize democracy, a social compromise with labor unions, working class, middle class, and business elites came together to create a very cohesive democracy that is now decaying.
Decades later, the far right is again a factor in politics. Once banished to the fringes, radical right politicians have now entered the mainstream in many European countries, voted in by people who feel alienated by the macroeconomics of the European Union and the increase in immigration.
Let's just say radical right-wing politics is clearly on the rise in Europe. In fact, in many countries in Europe, it's now the strongest political force. Hungary has been led by radical right-wing populist politician Viktor Orbán for more than 10 years now. The Netherlands, the strongest political party is a radical right-wing populist party. Austria, but even in Germany, the Alternative for Germany, it is now the second strongest party, constantly polling above 20%, which has been really unconceivable for many years.
The idea of European unity was created in part to prevent war.
This was an illusion we lived for 70-something years until Russia reminded us that wars are still something that happens on the continent, and we cannot guarantee that focusing on the pressing problems of the 21st century, like climate change and social cohesion and dealing with migration, that this is all the European Union has to address.
8 decades later, after the defeat of Nazi Germany, the unity of the continent is again under threat of war, this time with Russia. As the radical right blames migrants fleeing far-flung wars and climate change for the discontent of Europe. Alex Katopoulos, Al Jazeera.
You were listening to the WINN FM 98.9 newscast. Our top stories were:
St. Kitts Nevis Defence Force contingent concludes exercise Trade Winds 2025.
ECCB governor calls for establishment of dedicated trade logistics hub for CARICOM. Police identify suspected drowning victim as Bernard Isaac.
Waste sampling and composition analysis exercise in Nevis highlights the need for proper waste separation.
Island Youth Forum set to inspire future leaders at the Global Sustainable Island Summit in St. Kitts and Nevis. Grenada battling influx of sargassum seaweed. St. Lucia minister dismisses opposition claims of poverty crisis in St. Lucia. Internationally, Pakistan holds funerals for 31 killed in drone strikes as tensions with India reach critical levels.
Thank you for listening.